Last Saturday, I was excited to go to the Razorback football game. With Notre Dame in town for the first time ever, it seemed like a special game to attend. And since I had to be back here for confessions at 3:30, I was ready to leave early if needed. And I made it almost to the end of the third quarter before deciding to leave. Now, normally that would mean getting ahead of traffic, right? But last week, third quarter traffic was kind of like fourth quarter traffic would be on most games. So when I got into the heavy, slow-moving traffic on Weddington, I found myself paraphrasing Habakkuk from our first reading. How long, O Lord? In reality, it actually took me only probably 40 minutes or so to make it back here from the stadium. And I made it back in plenty of time for those 3:30 confessions. And obviously, even that was nothing, and even if it had been a little bit longer, it was nothing like the situation that Habakkuk faced around 600 BC as the Babylonians were about to capture Jerusalem and conquer the kingdom of Judah. In our time, we are accustomed to things happening quickly, and any bit of waiting can frustrate us. But Habakkuk is not complaining about being stuck in traffic or having to wait some time for his food to arrive or some other inconvenience that might cause us to have to wait in our modern times. Instead, Habakkuk asks how long he has to wait for his prayer for his people to be answered. How long does he have to wait for justice? How long does he have to wait for his people to live in peace? I would imagine that all of us have found ourselves at one time or another asking how long we have to wait for a prayer to be answered. So often we make our wishes known to God and we want an immediate response. But perhaps God has other plans. Even with great faith in God and a belief that He will ultimately give us what we need, if not always what we want, we might still ask, how long, O Lord? The Lord's response to Habakkuk is basically to say, trust me, it will happen in my good time. The actual words from our first reading were, write down the vision clearly upon the tablets so that one can read it readily. For the vision still has its time, presses on to fulfillment, and will not disappoint. If it delays, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not be late. Habakkuk is asked to believe in God's promise here and to make known the vision that God has given to him. The Lord's response to Habakkuk is not a direct answer in the way that the prophet might have wanted. The Lord does not tell him exactly how long, but instead asks him to trust that it will happen in God's time. In a similar way, in our gospel reading, the apostles make a request to Jesus, and his answer is not as direct as they might have wanted. Specifically, the apostles say, increase our faith. Certainly, that is a worthy request, and it's one that we might add to our own prayers as well. It might seem like the kind of request that Jesus would gladly fulfill. After all, wouldn't he want his followers to have increased faith? Wouldn't he want them to believe more strongly? Instead of miraculously increasing their faith, though, Jesus says, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. In other words, Jesus is saying that even a small amount of faith can do more than they imagine. He does not grant their request as they ask because he wants to tell them that it's not necessary. Their faith is already significant, is already real, is already strong. Recognizing that even a bit of faith, even that little bit can work wonders. We are called to exercise the faith that we have. Much like working a muscle, faith needs exercising. St. Paul tells Timothy to stir into flame the gift that he's been given. That's our calling too. Take what God has given us, use it well, and watch God make it grow. Faith the size of a mustard seed can ultimately uproot a mulberry tree and cast it into the sea. But likely there are many smaller acts of faith that lead up to that unusual feat. Many smaller acts that allow that faith to grow along the way. How long will it take for the gift of faith and other gifts of God to grow in our lives? How long until that mustard seed of faith can uproot the most difficult tree? How long will it take God to bring about something good in answer to our prayers? Ultimately, it does not matter because it's all in God's time. We don't need to be concerned with exactly how long. Instead, we trust always in what God is doing within us and around us. How long, O Lord? That's a question we might ask. And if God gave a direct answer, we might lose an opportunity to grow in our relationship with Him. Instead, we trust that it will happen in His time, and that the more we trust in Him, the more our faith will grow.